Hey y'all, so today I'm going to be showing you a fun, quick little project, and we're going to make a candle holder for a mason jar. Now this one is copper and steel, and the one we're going to make is going to be the same way. And it just sits down in the jar and hangs, and it lights up about like a lantern. Now I've got a short if you can find it, but I'll show you when we get done what it looks like in the dark and how good it lights up. But we're going to get started. I've already got my pieces here. I've got my copper disc and just a piece of 3/8 scrap. Normally I use a 1/4 inch stock for this, but I'm out, so we're gonna make do with what we've got. So I'm gonna move over to the anvil and we're gonna get started on it. I've got my swage block here, and I've got it on the bowl side, and my copper is already annealed. When you're working with copper, every once in a while you want to stop, either heat it up and let it cool or heat it up and quench it, and that will soften the copper back, because copper work hardens, and the more you beat on it and work it, the harder it gets, and if you don't anneal it, it will end up cracking. So we've got it in. I'm going to use my rounding hammer, and we're just going to dish it a little bit. And that's all we want with that, is just a little dish to set our candle in. Now this part is optional. It's completely up to you if you want to do it or not. But I like to hammer texture my copper. I think once you polish it and you've got that hammer texture on it, it looks really good. So what I've got here is just a 8-pound shot put ball resting on this hole in my anvil here. It sits nice. And depending, when I do the spoons and stuff, I'll use other things that are smaller, but the curve of this fits this ball really good. So we'll start in the middle here and just go around and work our way out. And there we have our hammer texture. And when I take this and buff it with buffing compound and all, it'll really make that shine. So for buffing this, I use a Green Rouge And I usually put gloves on because the friction from the buffer does heat the copper up pretty quick. See, after you buff it, that hammer texture really pops. After I buff it, I usually just take a microfiber cloth and wipe it down real good, get any residue off of it. But that is just about it for our bowl. Now we're going to get started on the handle portion. I'm going to start by drawing this out. As I'm drawing this out, I'm using the round side of the hammer, and I want to try to work it even so I don't get it too flat one way. This end is going to be the handle side, and I'm just going to straighten it up right now, and we're going to flip around and work on the other end of it. and sometimes you drop it. These tongs ain't the greatest. This. I've got it pretty close to where I want it for that section. I'm going to go ahead and square it up. When we're squaring it up, I'm using the flat side. Down here, where I've left this portion alone, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to heat this back up and I'm going to flatten it out so we'll have us a good spot to rivet our candle bowl to. I've got it pretty close to the shape I want. Instead of trying to hammer it, sometimes it's quicker. We'll just take a file and round that over a little bit. Now we swap back around to the other end. I'm going to go ahead and finish drawing this out for our handle. The smaller it gets, the faster it loses heat. But it heats up a lot faster too. So go ahead and get us another quick heat here. get the portion rounded for our finger loop. Scrolling in. Instead of using a jig today, we're just going to do it on the horn of the handle. Our bowl is a little over, well, it's about 2 inches, so I'm going to go a little over an inch here off the side. And bend this down for our bowl to sit in. This to be just a little bit past 90. Let's get a bit crooked on me. This is one reason I don't have a chain on this anvil. Sometimes it get in the way. We're just a little bit past 90 degrees there. Get another heat, and we're going to put a little decorative twist in that section. When I twist it here, when I stop, I want the handle to be on the same side as our pan's going to be. So we're going to go 1.5 turns. Try to keep everything straight. And there's our twist. That's why I left that section square. This part I am going to use a jig. Try to keep this as straight as I can. I may have to make a jig just for this. Trying to do this without messing up our handle. like that just about work. We may have to adjust on it a little bit to get it to hang in the jar right. And some of this stuff you just have to make little small adjustments here and there. It's just part of it. So we've got our forging done. We'll let it cool off. I'm gonna bring it over here to the wire wheel and get all the scale cleaned off of it and get it ready to coat with our beeswax. Just a little side note, this is not the safest way to do this. And if you decide to do it this way, make sure you've got a good grip on it, because I have had it jerk pieces out of my hand and they bounce off the wall and go flying by my face. But there it is, cleaned up. Now we've got to put our hole down there to put our rivet and rivet our pan on. Sometimes you're better off doing it in a vise with a hand drill. I believe it's time for some new drill bits. This just ain't working for me today. This is an 1/8 inch rivet. And on the back side, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch bit to countersink it to give our rivet something to bite into. It's not all that important, because all that it's doing is just holding the pan on. Clean that side up. So now we'll take our piece, take our torch, heat it up, and melt on our beeswax. What this does is just gives it a protective coating to help keep it from rusting. let that cool off and we'll rivet our pan onto the handle. So we got our bowl and our handle. Our little copper nail already stuck through it. And we'll go through the handle. Figure out exactly which direction I want to sit. I was a little bit off center when I drilled it. We'll take our pliers and cut that off. I usually leave maybe about 1/8 of an inch. May have to move to the vise for this, but and we just pin the rivet down. There's our finished candle holder. Now we got it all finished up. Got the lights cut off so you can see it. Our candle sitting on there. Get it lit. And it just hangs in the jar. And one this size, it's a little bit shorter than the one I showed at the start, can be used in both a pint jar and a quart jar. But that's it. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.